I'm just here to pick up my mail. I've lived here for 20 years. You can't tell me what to do. This is my home.
You're not the one who should be holding that key.
This town doesn't belong to you.
I wasn't supposed to film the moment my entire neighborhood turned on me, but honestly, when you see 3 HOA board members sprinting across a cul-de-sac like angry penguins with clipboards, your instincts kick in. I hit record. And thank God I did, because that footage is basically the reason I still own my property today, and the reason the HOA president, Marilyn Blake, fled the neighborhood like a fugitive with a fresh spray tan. But let me start with the moment things went insane. The morning I walked outside and found a brand new aluminum barricade welded across the only footpath leading to my creek access. Not a creek access. My creek access. As in, legally deeded, on paper, with a tax ID and coordinates, my property. It looked like something out of a low-budget prison movie, ugly silver bars shoved into deep concrete footings, a sign that said HOA access only, and a fresh padlock hanging like an insult. For a second, I thought someone had just screwed up locations. Contractors get things wrong all the time. Maybe they meant to block the hiking trail entrance down the road. Maybe they measured wrong. Maybe they were drunk. I was willing to give the world the benefit of the doubt. And then I saw her. Walking down the hill with that slow, smug stride like she was the sheriff of a town nobody asked her to run. Marilyn Blake. The HOA president. The self-appointed queen of Brookridge Estates. She wore this ridiculous pink athletic jacket and sunglasses big enough to count as a privacy fence. And of course she had her clipboard. Marilyn never went anywhere without her clipboard. I swear she sleeps with it. "You're welcome," she said before I even opened my mouth. "For what?" I asked, holding my coffee like it was a shield. "For securing the creek trail. We can't have unauthorized individuals wandering around back there." "I'm the authorized individual," I said, pointing at the barricade. "The trail literally leads to my backyard." She smiled, this tight-lipped, Stepford wife smile that looked painted on. "Not anymore. The board voted to restrict access." "You can't vote to steal land," I said. Real calm. Real steady. Because I knew if I let myself get angry, she would twist it into aggressive behavior faster than you can say HOA violation. "It's not stealing," she said. "It's reallocating. You can appeal the decision if you'd like." I blinked. "Appeal, you blocking my deeded path?" "Yes." "That doesn't even make sense." "It does to the board," she chirped. "And by the way, I already called security patrol. They'll be here in 10 minutes. You shouldn't be standing on restricted HOA property." This is where I had a tiny out-of-body experience. Because if I stayed silent, she'd steamroll me. If I yelled, she'd call me unstable. If I walked away, she'd take more. So I did the most dangerous possible thing. I laughed. Her face dropped. "This isn't funny." "Oh, it is," I said. "Because this land is mine. And you're trespassing." Her jaw clenched. "You are misinformed. The HOA has jurisdiction over all land connecting to shared natural resources. It's in the charter." I pulled the deed from my hoodie pocket. I kept it on me ever since a neighbor told me Marilyn once tried to annex a guy's rose garden by citing curb aesthetic imbalance. "This is my creek access," I said, holding the document in her face. "Recorded with the county. Signed. Sealed. Paid for." She didn't even look at it. The board has chosen to disregard that outdated filing. Outdated how? It's from 2003. "We're modernizing the neighborhood," she said. "Some things get grandfathered out. You can't just grandfather out a property right." "We can," she said, and we did. I opened my mouth to argue, and that's when a white HOA security SUV rolled up the street like it was about to raid a meth lab. 2 private security guys stepped out, wearing tactical vests like they were at war with a raccoon uprising. "Is this the trespasser?" one of them asked. Marilyn pointed at me. "Yes." My stomach did this weird drop, like the moment before a roller coaster plummets. "Sir," the guard said, hand resting on his belt like he had a badge. "He didn't. I'm going to need you to step away from the barricade." "It's my property," I said. "I'm literally standing on my footprint on the county map." "That's disputed," Marilyn snapped. "No, it isn't," I replied. "You're just making stuff up." The guard frowned at both of us. "Do you have proof?" I handed him the deed. He scanned it, confused, then looked at Marilyn. "This looks legit." Marilyn's eyes went cold, like freezer aisle cold. "The board is engaged in a land reclassification. He's interfering." "Ma'am," the guard said slowly, "we're not allowed to interfere in civil disputes." Marilyn's jaw tightened. She turned back to me, stepping closer, lowering her voice. "You don't understand what you've done," she whispered. "By owning my land? By getting in the way. You won't win. You're not part of this community. You're a temporary occupant with an inflated sense of entitlement." I raised a brow. "I literally live here." "Not for long," she hissed. "You'll be gone by the end of the month." I felt the hairs on my neck stand up. And at that exact moment, perfect timing is always, my phone buzzed. A notification popped up. HOA board notice, urgent. Proposal to revoke creek lot property rights due to safety concerns. Scheduled vote, tonight. My throat went dry. In real time, right in front of me, she was launching the process to steal my land. And that's when I realized. This wasn't about a trail. This wasn't about safety. This wasn't even about the HOA. It was about whatever Marilyn was hiding behind that creek. And she was willing to break the law to keep me from finding it. I looked at the barricade. Then at my phone. Then at Marilyn. "Thanks," I said. "For what?" she snapped. "For confirming exactly what I needed to know." Then I hit record on my phone, aimed it right at her, and said, "Tell the camera why you blocked access to land you don't own." Her face drained of color. And the real war officially began. By the time I got back inside, my hands were shaking, not from fear, but from that electric, ice-hot adrenaline that hits when someone tries to screw you publicly and confidently. I replayed the footage I'd recorded, Marilyn's smug face, the illegal barricade, the moment she realized she was on camera. It was gold. Evidence grade. Career ending for her type. But when you're fighting someone who doesn't play by rules, evidence alone isn't enough, you need leverage. So I grabbed my laptop, opened the county GIS map, and pulled up the official parcel layers. My creek access parcel flashed green. HOA land around it showed yellow. And the most interesting part? There was a long, narrow strip of land, about 300 feet, wedged between HOA common area and a privately owned wooded lot past the creek. That strip was recorded as an easement corridor, meant for emergency drainage and maintenance. But here's the insane part. The county records showed a pending transfer request. Filed 2 weeks ago. And the buyer's name? Brookridge Development Associates, LLC. A shiny, corporate-sounding shell company with no website, no local office, and a P.O. box in a different state. My jaw clenched. So Marilyn wasn't blocking the trail for safety. She wasn't reallocating. She was preparing the land for a sale, a quiet sale, without telling any homeowners. That explained her urgency. That explained the vote scheduled for tonight. That explained her threat that I'd be gone by the end of the month. If my deed stayed intact, she couldn't sell the land. If she couldn't sell it, the developer couldn't get creek access. If the developer couldn't get creek access, their entire project died. I leaned back in my chair, letting out a low whistle. This wasn't a petty HOA feud anymore. This was a land grab. But then the next notification nearly made my heart stop. HOA fine issued, unauthorized structure on HOA property. Amount, $2,500. Description, fence obstruction and vandalism. Fence obstruction? Vandalism? I didn't even touch the barricade. The fines didn't stop. They came rapid fire, for more notifications. HOA warning, landscaping violation. HOA violation, security interference. HOA notice, hostile behavior toward board member. HOA warning, improper use of recording devices. Finally, HOA final notice, mandatory board hearing, 3 p.m. tomorrow. Ah. There it was. The classic HOA strategy: overwhelm, intimidate, bury you in paperwork, force you into a controlled hearing, then fabricate enough violations to foreclose your house. I laughed out loud. They really thought I was stupid enough to play by their fake rules. I grabbed my camera again. If they wanted to play dirty, I was about to play documentary level filthy. I started with interviews. Actual neighbors, real people who'd been quietly steamrolled by Marilyn's board for years. My first stop was Old Man Carver's place. He lived 2 houses down and always sat on his porch like a watchdog for neighborhood nonsense. "You saw the barricade?" I asked. He spat tobacco into a cup. "Saw 'em welded myself," he said. "They came at sunrise. Told me to look the other way." "Who did?" "Her," he said, pointing down the street with his thumb. "Queen Marilyn." I showed him the board notice scheduling a vote to take my creek access. He shook his head. She tried that stunt in 2019. Wanted to annex a strip behind Lot 14. Said it was unused. The owner fought back, and next thing you know, boom, 3 violations, 2 noise complaints, and a lien. "And what happened?" "He moved," Carver said. "Sold low too. She bought the land at auction." My stomach tightened. "So she's done this before?" He nodded. "Son, this woman's been playing Monopoly with real houses for 10 years. Perfect. Testimony, motive, history." My video was writing itself. Next stop, the Jenkins family. They'd lived here since the neighborhood was built. Their teenage daughter opened the door. "Your dad home?" I asked. "He's in the backyard cussing at a sprinkler," she said. "You can film. He hates the HOA more than mosquitoes." Mr. Jenkins told me the craziest story yet. Marilyn once fined him because his shadow extended beyond his property during sunset, disrupting communal visibility. He refused to pay. She raised his dues by 40% the next year. "That woman's poison," he said. "If she's coming for your creek access, it ain't personal. It's profitable." My camera captured everything. By noon, I had enough footage to make a 2-hour Netflix special. But I wasn't done. I needed the one thing that could sink her fast. Proof of the illegal land sale. The request was public record, but the documents weren't online. They were stored at the County Land Records Office, which closed at 5 p.m. I checked the time. 3:42 p.m. I flew out of my driveway like a GTA character, speeding through town, praying I hit green lights. I parked badly, bolted inside, and practically slammed into the records clerk's desk. "I need the pending transfer request for parcel 218C, emergency easement corridor," I said. The clerk typed. Squinted. Typed again. "Ha. That's weird," she muttered. "What?" The request was filed by someone named M. Blake. My heart hammered. She didn't even bother hiding her fingerprints. She filed the land transfer under her own name. The clerk printed the file. 4 pages. Stamped. Signed. And on page 3, in the tiny fine print, "Property rights contingent on clearance of neighboring deed restrictions." That meant me. That meant my creek access. That meant Marilyn's entire plan depended on removing me before the developer's deal closed. I exhaled hard. Then my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Stop filming. Stop digging. Don't come to the vote tonight." Then another. "This isn't a fight you can win." The third one hit like a punch. "You don't want to end up like the last person who got in the way." I stared at the messages, cold running through my veins. Who the hell was sending these? I looked around the records office. Empty. Silent. Just the hum of fluorescent lights. I tucked the documents under my arm and walked outside, scanning the parking lot. That's when I saw it. Marilyn's silver Lexus. Parked right next to my car. Engine running. No driver inside. Just a phone sitting in the driver's seat recording. Watching. Waiting. Like a threat. Or a warning. Or both. And the moment I stepped into the frame, the phone screen lit up with a new message. See you tonight. The next morning, Mark woke up with that wired, restless feeling, the kind you get before a big exam or before your landlord says, "We need to talk." Something wasn't right. Before his coffee even finished brewing, his phone buzzed non-stop. The HOA group chat, Willow Creek Residents, NO Drama, was exploding with more drama than a reality TV reunion episode. People were sending pictures, panicking, arguing, accusing. But one message froze everything. Emergency HOA meeting called by President Howard. Mandatory. 5 p.m. Mandatory. Classic Howard dictatorship energy. Mark didn't need to guess why. He already knew he'd poked the hornet's nest. But he didn't expect what came next. The surprise violation storm. Around noon, Mark stepped outside and found a bright orange violation notice taped to his mailbox, another on his porch post, one on his trash bin, and one on his lawn sprinkler. 4 violations in one day. And all of them were ridiculous. Mailbox paint too faded. It was brand new. Lawn too green. Bro really wrote that. Trash bin positioned too confidently. What does that even mean? Porch enhancement structure remains unregistered. The one they refused to approve because Howard didn't like the vibes. This wasn't enforcement. This was harassment. The neighbors started noticing. A few shook their heads sympathetically. Others kept heads down, afraid of retaliation. That's how HOAs like this survive fear. But Mark wasn't wired like that. He took photos of everything, folded the violations neatly, and tucked them in his back pocket like receipts he'd use later. He whispered to himself. You picked the wrong guy to play with. The secret meeting. By 5 p.m., the entire neighborhood shuffled into the Willow Creek clubhouse, basically a sad-looking conference room with mismatched chairs and a giant framed "Rules Keep US Safe" poster. Howard stood at the front, chest puffed out, wearing his usual uniform, polo shirt tucked too tightly into khaki pants, struggling for their life. His face was red, not from sunburn but from anger. Beside him was his loyal sidekick Doug, holding a thick binder labeled evidence. Mark took a seat dead center. If this was war, he wanted front row seats. Howard slammed the gavel like he was sentencing someone to life in prison. Residents, he boomed, we are gathered because a certain individual has been causing disruption, violating rules, and endangering the order we've built. Everyone in the room turned to Mark. He smirked. Howard opened the binder dramatically. This resident, Mark Stone, has built unauthorized structures, instigated conflict, and repeatedly disrespected HOA authority. Mark tapped his foot, bored already. Then Howard raised a stack of photos. These images show his unapproved deck, poorly constructed porch, and dangerous railing extensions. Mark almost laughed. Half those photos were taken at weird angles, like someone crawling on the ground pretending to be a spy. He stood.
Question, Mark said. Is the HOA planning to address how my porch was approved by 2 contractors, passed safety checks, and only became a problem after I refused to pay a processing fee you demanded in cash? The room went quiet. Howard's eye twitched. Doug pretended to check invisible dust on the binder. Mark continued. Or maybe we should talk about the HOA funds missing from last year's budget. $27,000 labeled miscellaneous landscaping. Where's the landscaping? Because my yard's still ugly. A few neighbors snorted. Howard slammed the gavel again, voice cracking. You're out of order. Mark leaned forward. No, you're out of money, out of excuses, and out of time. Doug whispered something to Howard. Probably stop talking before we go to jail. But Howard doubled down. He grabbed a final sheet dramatically. This is it. The board has voted to fine you $10,500. Effective immediately. Daily penalties apply. The room gasped. Mark chuckled slowly, almost theatrically. Perfect. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a USB drive. I was hoping you'd go this far. The evidence drop. Mark walked up to the projector, plugged in the USB, and hit play. A video appeared. Nighttime. Shaky footage. A shadowy figure creeping through Mark's yard. Howard. Caught red-handed loosening bolts on Mark's porch railing. Tampering with his fence. Taking pictures of damage he caused himself. He didn't know Mark installed motion cams facing the yard, not the street. Gasps echoed across the room. Howard went pale. Doug closed the binder like it was cursed. Mark paused the video right at the frame showing Howard unscrewing a beam. This is your dangerous porch, Mark said. Dangerous because you sabotaged it. Neighbors erupted. That's illegal. He could have hurt someone. Call the cops. Howard backed away from the podium. This is edited. He's framing me. Mark switched to another clip. Howard and Doug arguing outside the HOA office, discussing pressure tactics to force Mark's compliance. Another clip. Emails showing Howard rejected the porch repeatedly because Mark wouldn't donate to the HOA Improvement Fund. A fund that didn't exist. Another. Howard bragging to a contractor that he could make or break anyone in this neighborhood. Howard's face liquefied. This wasn't an exposure, this was a public execution. The collapse. People stood. People shouted. Two elderly neighbors who'd been silent for years started yelling about their own harassment. The room turned into a courtroom without order. Someone demanded Howard resign. Another yelled for police involvement. A third said they'd call the local news. Howard tried to speak, but he choked, literally unable to form words. Mark walked toward the exit calmly. He stopped at the door, looked back, and said, "This meeting is adjourned." Howard flinched like he'd been slapped. The final blow sets up the ending. He wasn't arrested yet. The board hadn't fully dissolved yet. And justice wasn't complete. But the dominoes had started falling.